because I'm interested to see over 50 movies done, and yet I really can't name a top 10. I'm gonna get crucified for making this video. Let's not pretend for a second that at one point in the late 80s and early 90s, Steven Seagal had Hollywood convinced he was the most dangerous man on the set. Yes, while there was some acting, it is a funny, crazy story on how this man's career literally went from this to that. And I will play you a snippet of a video that I made about a year ago. Steven Seagal, the man that opened up his own Aikido dojo in Japan and fought off the Yakuza and gained their respect. Literally, everybody thought this man was badass, and not realizing that all of the Aikido techniques he was showing were by students that were helping him. I mean, they were doing TV interviews. People were just amazed at Steven Seagal.
The only non-Japanese Aikido master ever in the history of Japan to own and operate an Aikido school on Japanese soil. Indeed, watch closely and you will detect the difference between Aikido and other martial arts. Notice that the master is merely defending himself, turning aside his attackers while exerting very little counterforce of his own.
And then that curtain got pulled back. But before all that noise, this film still remains in people's top 5 of out of the 50 plus movies that Steven Seagal has starred in as one of the better films that he actually made. So 35 years later, I'm taking a look back on what was really going on behind the scenes, how this movie was actually a lot longer than you actually realized, the tension that was set behind the film, because it is no secret in Hollywood, Steven Seagal was extremely difficult to work with because he's a badass. Anyways, Clothing Line will be coming back soon. I thank you for all your support. Don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe. Let's get into it.
Sammy, how you doing?
What are you doing here, asshole?
See, you still call me here like a girl.
You guys got fat while everybody starved on the street. It's my turn. You come with me. I'm at the Plaza Hotel. You're welcome. You're all welcome!
Chapter 1. Why this movie still hits. Right off the jump, Out for Justice doesn't feel like most early 90s action films. There's no glossy Hollywood look, no over-the-top one-liners every 5 seconds. This movie feels dirty and gritty. For instance, right from the jump, you're dropped straight into a neighborhood where you know something bad is about to happen. And when it does, it's not flashy. It is literally violent, quick, brutal, bone-shattering. That's the beginning of the movie, and we all love it. And plus, we have one of the more iconic bar fight scenes, which Steven Seagal has had a lot in his career, but it was controlled damage. No music saving you, no slow motion, just bones cracking and bodies dropping on the floor. And that's the thing about this movie. It didn't try to entertain you with style, it hit you with impact. But as good as Seagal thinks he was in this film, he's not the real reason people remember this movie. Not even close. Chapter 2. The villain who stole the movie. The real reason this movie still sticks with people? Richie, played by William Forsythe, one of the great villains in the whole Steven Seagal history of movies. I'll be honest, this dude, Will, didn't just play a villain, he became chaos. Richie isn't calculated, he's not smooth, he is literally unpredictable. One minute he's joking with his own cronies, and then the next minute he's snapping. And it feels real. Like you're not watching a performance, you're watching somebody who actually lost control. Every scene he's in, you don't know what's going to happen. And that kind of energy, it doesn't just elevate the movie, it takes it over. But here's where things get interesting, because this version of the movie wasn't even in the original plan. Let me explain. Chapter 3. This wasn't the original film. According to William Forsythe in interviews himself, this movie started out completely different. The script had more of that mean streets feel, more grounded, more character driven, less of one man destroys and beats up everybody and more of a real street story. But somewhere during production, that changed. You can feel it. There are moments in this movie that just feel like they belong to two different films. One trying to tell a story, and the other just jumping to Seagal beating up somebody or him chasing down somebody. We won't talk about how he runs. And once that shift happened, everybody else started changing too, including the movie, the final cut that you see. Chapter 4, the 30-minute cut. Now, Out for Justice is literally shy of being over 90 minutes long, your typical action film. But the original film, that wasn't the idea at all. This movie was a lot longer. There was more story, more scenes, and a lot more Richie. And most importantly, more connections between everything. But in the final version, a lot of that is gone. You can actually feel it when you watch the movie. Scenes jump, moments feel cut short, things happen fast, and a lot of the times, too fast. And that's because the movie didn't get just trimmed, it got stripped down. And when it happens, it's actually not random. There's usually a reason behind it. And in this case, I will tell you why. That reason was really because of tension and jealousy. Chapter 5, Steven vs. William. Behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth as everybody thought, and not smooth at all. William Forsythe has talked about how things felt off during filming. At one point, Steven Seagal himself told him he needed to work on his Brooklyn accent. Now, here's the problem. Forsythe is actually from Brooklyn. So his actual response was, "Trust me, you do." And Steven Seagal took that as offensive. But it didn't stop there. Forsythe even said he ended up cracking a tooth while filming after his face hit a brick wall. So while the movie looks brutal on screen, it wasn't exactly safe behind the scenes either. And then there are the reports that some of Forsythe's scenes were actually cut down. He was starting to outshine the man himself, Mr. Seagal. Now, whether that was ego or just him having creative control, one thing is clear. There was friction, and trust me, that friction didn't just stay with all the actors and the stuntmen that he always brutally beat on. Chapter 6, the directors clash. Director John Flynn had his own issues because, from his perspective, this wasn't supposed to be just another action movie. There was actually supposed to be a lot more weight to it. More story, more realism, but dealing with Seagal wasn't easy. There were reports of tension on set, creative differences, even friction on how things were going to be handled. And when you combine that with everything else going on and Mr. Seagal having the ego, well, it starts to make sense why the final movie feels the way it does. This wasn't one clear vision. This was a movie being pulled in different direction and then cut down to fit one person's ego, Mr. Steven Seagal himself. Now, this isn't the first video or the last video you will ever hear of how difficult Steven Seagal was to work with. But I feel like if the original movie would have came out, it didn't matter that, William was outshining him. It would have happened anyways, because realistically in this film, even though a half an hour was trimmed out of it, you still feel William's performance over Mr. Seagal's anyways. But let's proceed on with the video.
In Aikido, basically speaking, there is no punching, there is no kicking, there is no blocking, there is no collision. Aikido is basically being able to be one with the universe, be one with nature.
My final thoughts. So yeah, 35 years later, Out for Justice, to me, still hits strong. Even with learning the truth behind it all and realizing it was a lot messier than people realized, it still is entertaining, and it still has that Seagal feel of every bone and body hitting the ground, snapping and cracking. It was for that moment where people really believed Steven Seagal was a badass. And that's what we're seeing on screen. That image of Seagal before the curtain got pulled back. Now again, I'll link my original video at the end of this, but what do you think? Do you think this movie still hits hard? Is it in your top 5 of Steven Seagal movies? And literally, can anybody actually give me a top 10 list of Steven Seagal movies in the comments? I will pin that as well because I'm interested to see over 50 movies done, and yet I really can't name a top 10. Anyways, clothing line will be returning soon as I can get enough up to cover all of the expenses. I will have my Impulse Creations clothing line coming back. Again, I thank you for all your support, and don't forget to check out Raw Takes Unfiltered every Friday night at 9 p.m. You never know what we're going to talk about, especially with my brother Triborough. We are the two voices with no filters. Anyways, much love. See you on the next one. Pop my collar. Peace.
Thank you. You love me. You